When I help people sell cars or I even buy them, I become part of their family. So there's people that have great car collections, and they may have Duesenbergs and Packards, Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Bugattis, Delahaye's. This car fits right in because it's so beautiful and iconic. It's a piece of art. Custom car culture started back in the 40s and 50s. A lot of it really exploded, though, in the early 50s when the servicemen were coming back from war. So they were taking cars that were old cars, but trying to make them look new and different and crazy, you know. And they had a lot of skills they'd learned in the service to be able to do a lot of this work themselves.
Just like anything else, from pop culture to fashion and styling, things really started to evolve. And it was the custom car culture, not necessarily the hot rod culture, it's different, that really got ahead of steam, of where cars got lower, cars got longer, cars got more wild in the styling, and they were painted shades of colors that we had not seen on production cars.
But there were certain individuals that had a little bit more money, and they hired people to do that work because they became real craftsmen. And some of the best craftsmen were at George and Sam Barris' shop.
Sam was the craftsman and George Barris was the master promoter, but it was the blending and the meshing of their two abilities that really put them at the top of car customizing beginning back in the late 1940s. The story of the famed Hirohata Merc really began with 49 Chevrolet. Bob Hirohata had a car previously mildly customized by the Barris brothers at Barris Customs, and he thought he wanted to do something, a little bit of a newer vehicle. So he bought a really nice, clean, slightly used 1951 Mercury 8 Club Coupe and took it to the guys and said, I want to chop the top, but beyond that, I'm going to let you guys do with it what you see.
If you look at a 49, 50, 51 Mercury, it was a great base to start with because it already looked like a custom car. It already had that stance and that look, and of course it had a Mercury flathead V8 in it, which was a very hot roddy thing, you know, to have a throaty sounding V8 in a car. But yet there became great opportunities for customizing, especially in a two-door Mercury Club Coupe.
It was the look and the design and the style of the car is what a lot of car customizers thought this could be a really good palette to do some modifications on.
The first thing you look at is the grille. It's the floating grille, which no one ever had before. I mean, so you can't see how it's attached. And it's made out of three pieces of a 51 Ford grille. They added the headlights in the front, they extended it 4 inches to make those headlights stick out, lengthening the car. And then, of course, in order to do that, you had to lengthen the hood. Chop the top, which is an unbelievable feat. 4 inches in the front, 7 inches in the back, and using the original glass in the back and laying it forward. Lincoln Capri taillights in the back. Everybody was using back in that era big taillights, Packard, but they Frenched them in and they made them look like they were inside of the rear quarter panel, not just stuck on the outside. They took out the B-pillar and they formed this beautiful shape that made the car look like it was just going fast, just sitting still. And then, of course, the chrome on the bottom from a Buick. If you stand back and look at the car, the level is absolutely perfect. And then they integrated a push button with solenoids to open the doors. I mean, nobody had that stuff back then. It was just knowledge and instinct and just being an artisan and a craftsman.
When a very young 16-year-old Jim McNiel bought this car really just as a used car, certainly past its prime, in the late 1950s, it was a car that he drove to school. This was a car that he began to raise his family in, but at some point, he put the car away.
He couldn't see how he could afford to restore the car. And then some friends and some real car enthusiasts found the car, talked to Jim, and talked him into going through with the project, and they would help. So Jim took the car apart himself And he started this process in restoring this car. Contacted Junior Conway, who painted the car initially for the Barris brothers, and Junior still had some of the original paint to go by. George Barris was part of the project. He was sort of like the supervisor of the project, telling him what was right and what was wrong and how it looked. And the car was restored and shown for the first time in 2009. It won all sorts of awards with the Roadster Show and other autoramas. But then it came to Pebble Beach. And in 2015, they had a custom car class, especially Mercury's. Needless to say, it won that class too. I'd never seen it in person before, and I was looking at it, and Jim McNiel walked up to me and introduced himself. Then he asked me to sit in the car. Would I please sit in behind the driver's seat behind the wheel? And I said yes, and he got in the other side of the car, and he said to me, he says, I'm going to ask you a favor. I'd really appreciate the day that my family needs to sell this car, would you help them sell the car? And I said, I'd be honored, Jim.
You really got to hand it to the McNiel family for recognizing Wayne Carini as somebody they wanted to bring in an advisory role to help them. Wayne is world-renowned as the #1 car guy, not only with knowledge, but with the passion and the interest of all things automotive. It's the right combination of Wayne and Mecum putting all those pieces in place to make sure the world hears about this car and get the bidders there that understand just how important and how wonderful this car is.
A broad spectrum of people love this car. People like art, they love beauty, and they love iconic pieces. This is what this car is, an iconic piece of art.
I don't think that there's any one single vehicle that will go down in history as being such a trendsetter that has stood the test of time as the Hirohata Merc.